Hello, and welcome to round 2 of the Parenting Roundabout podcast. I'm Terri Morrow, and I'm here with Catherine Paletko. Say hi, Catherine.
Hello.
Usually on this podcast, we talk about parenting issues, but once a week, Catherine and I like to get together to discuss TV, movies, books, and other entertainment topics, because it's nice to talk about something other than parenting for a change. This week, we'll be continuing our Parks and Recreation Marathon. Only 2 weeks left. I can't believe it. And we'll be talking about the West Wing episode 6 Meetings Before Lunch and the West Wing Weekly episode about it. But first, Catherine, you've been watching the Great British Baking Show.
Yes, I have. I don't think I saw every single episode, but I saw most of them. It's plays in the U.S. on PBS, and it is a British import. They just reshow the whole thing. Okay. The only thing they change is the title.
Now, is the version that's on Netflix the same as what just showed on PBS, or is it an old season?
It may be an old season. I'm not sure. I think I'm not sure what the Netflix versions are compared to.
It started with a swirl, Swiss rolled up cake or something like that.
I don't remember back to the first one I watched.
I watched half of the first one, and it was quite adorable.
It is. It's really adorable, and it's a great family show, that you can, my kids like it. It's fun to watch because it's a reality competition show, but it is very sweet, and there are no jerky people. There's no horrible strategy, editing for drama kind of thing. The drama is all in, they actually sit and stare through the oven, through the door of the oven, watching their stuff bake, and you're with them. You're there with your, heart in your throat. Is it going to rise? And you can't believe that you're interested enough to watch that, but in fact
the one that I watched, they were making sponge cake to do this roll-up thing, and if you cook it a little too long, it'll crack when you roll it up, but if you cook it not enough, it's mushy and disgusting, and it was really 2 minutes of them checking in the oven, peeking inside, not quite ready yet, I'm a little worried, maybe it's going to be too done. It was very cute.
Yeah. It's great. I definitely recommend it. I'm not sure how many. Pop Culture Happy Hour did a little segment about it a little while ago and tried to explain how the British seasons compare to what they've shown here, and apparently they've done it sort of all out of order. And they started with season 3, and then they went back and showed season 2, and then they went to season 4, or I don't know how they did it, but it doesn't really matter. You can watch it whenever, because obviously there's someone eliminated each week, but it's fun to watch at any point in the season, I think.
Yeah, I was very nervous for them all. They all seemed very nice.
Yes.
And that's the only thing I don't like about these competitions, because I feel bad that somebody's going to have to go home. I feel bad for them and stuff. But it reminded me of something that Minnie Driver said recently in conjunction with Speechless, which is her new show for the fall season, is that you can say very rude things in a British accent and it still sounds nice. So even when they were criticizing people, it came off so sweet. Right. Well, this is really quite terrible.
Yeah. The judges are very, they're not pushovers, but they do always find something good to say.
Yes.
And they also explain why something didn't work.
Right.
You didn't have enough sugar, and so it's not soft enough, or whatever I don't know how to bake. So, there's all different kinds of flour that they could have chosen, and actually you should have chosen a different kind of flour, and maybe it would have worked better. That kind of thing. And so if you are a baker, I imagine you could actually learn a little something from it. Yeah. So it's very charming and highly recommended.
The host or hosts seemed, not the judges, but the people, it seemed very funny. I really enjoyed the commentary. It was quite cute.
Yeah, they are funny, and they're apparently some sort of British comedy duo. It's these two women, and yeah, they're fun, and they all seem. It just seems to be like one big happy family.
It does. It really does. I really enjoyed the little bit of it I watched, and if I had time to watch more stuff, I would watch. I might watch some of it with my daughter.
Yeah, I think she would like it if she likes cooking shows.
How many seasons of it have you watched, or is this just your beginning?
I've probably watched 2 whole ones, or the majority of 2 seasons, I would say. Yeah.
And we'll continue. Is it usually the same sorts of stuff that they do all the time? It's, well, I guess baking. There's only so many. It seemed like they were doing one that they could have their own recipe, which they were able to prepare ahead of time, and then one time they have a surprise. They have to cook one of the judges' recipes, something like that. Right.
Yes, there's 3 parts. The first is, I forget what they call it, but I believe they know in advance what they're going.
There was like a signature challenge, and then there was a technical challenge.
Right, and then the showstopper is the final thing. So the signature one, the one that I watched recently, which was the finale, it was iced buns. And so
of course it was.
My husband and I thought it was going to be like an eclair, you know. But really it was like hot dog buns basically, but with creamy filling and then icing on top.
Oh, you say that's a bad thing. It sounds delicious. They looked quite good. And then the first one, they get to kind of do their own spin on whatever this particular thing is, and I believe they have advance notice because they bring some of the ingredients that they want to use. Right, and they had this is my mother's recipe, or this. I kind of liked that it's not, gee, what can I think of on my feet? Although I have my suspicions that most of those cooking, they must just tell them at least your ingredients will be from this list of 50, because people seem to have ideas of what to do with things.
Right.
But on this, they were clear that you were prepared.
Right. And then the second piece, the second part, the middle piece, is called the technical challenge, and they're given a recipe without advance preparation. Mm-hmm. They're given all the ingredients and the recipe, but the recipe, I think, has been sort of stripped down. Yeah. Because they don't necessarily know what they're doing. And it's kind of fun to watch them. Yeah. Oh, what am I supposed to do? When? And just see how they interpret it. Yeah. And then they're blind judged on that one. Mm-hmm. On the first and third one, the judges know who's whose, but on the middle one, they do not. And then on the final, this is the showstopper, which again, I believe they have advance notice, because that's supposed to be a big fancy showstopper, you know? Whether it's a certain kind of cake or a bread or a trifle or all different kinds of things. So yeah, I didn't realize there were 3. I got through the first one, and then they were saying, well, now your next one. I said, there's going to be 2 in each episode, but there's 3, huh? That's a lot of baking. Yeah, and they do it over the course of a weekend, and then they go home and practice some more on the weekend, I guess. Yeah. Well, that seemed if you like competition cooking shows, but they seem a little mean-spirited sometimes for you. Exactly. This is just, at least as much of it as I watched, very sweet and genteel, as one would expect, and many adorable accents, if you like that sort of thing. Yes. And just in general, the contestants seem lovely. I mean, yes. I don't know how they're finding them, but they're not there for fame and fortune, because they don't even win any money, I don't think. No. They win like a cake plate. But they're just, charming people that are lovely to spend an hour with. They did all seem to be, and they are portrayed that way also. They're allowed to be depicted as basically lovely people and not cutthroat or anything. Right. Or, so, they didn't put a real, at least at the beginning, a real hard thing on the competition end of it. It was mostly just, gee, I would like to make a roll cake that does not fall apart. Right. Yeah. And they were not all successful in that endeavor. Right. But,
So we recommend that. I think I'll try to watch a little bit. It is on Netflix as well as PBS, though possibly not the same season. I do not know.
Mm-hmm.
Check it out.
I don't want to say, like, name some of the people, because then you'll know
spoilers
who went to the end.
Everybody cover your ears. I imagine it's somewhat of the same, unless you remember the exact names, which I don't. I imagine there's not that many different varieties of types of people. That was it the
Right.
It'd be hard to know whether it was the same season or not.
Right.
So moving on, we also are continuing on our Parks and Recreation marathon this week, though not for much longer. We are in the 7th season, which has a mere 12 episodes. So between this week, next week, and the week after, we will be done. We have now leapt into the future on Parks and Recreation. Something you do not see on a sitcom very often is an entire season that is set 3 years in the future. I believe mostly because I read that Amy Poehler didn't want to work with babies, and she didn't want to pretend to be pregnant, and she wanted to be able to not have the kids around very much. So they jumped as many years in the future as was necessary, that they could trot 3 toddlers out and then send them away with April and Andy. Right.
Which I think is good, because it's always like a jump the shark moment when you have
it really is
babies or toddlers, and they're never very realistic, and it's just messy.
Yes.
So.
And you wouldn't have wanted to send three infants off with April and Andy. You would have been a little worried about them.
No.
3-year-olds can kind of hold their own. It's at least an even match. But so it allows them to have a little fun with things like those. I want one of those grizzle pads. Are those going to be available next year that are like just kind of floating? The pictures floating in air. That's pretty cool.
Every once in a while they'll say something like, until Elton John bought
Chick-fil-A. Shia LaBeouf is designing wedding dresses. And I think it was Morgan Freeman and Shailene Woodley are having a feud. I think they must just drawn out 2 names that seem the least likely. Right. so it's fun. I think it works pretty well. And gives them an opportunity to do some things like make Ron and Leslie be feuding.
Right.
But
which we'll get to.
Yes, I'm happy that it tied up within these 4 episodes. But do we want to go through? I guess we'll go through them episode by episode. Sure. The first one was 2017, which it picks up from at the end of last season. You had this 3-year time jump, and then you saw Ben and Leslie get onto an elevator. And as this episode opens, they are stepping off of that elevator. And I guess Ben is in a tux because there's a gala for him that night. But first, there's some... the Newport land is going to be sold, and Leslie wants it for a national park. And Grizzle, which is this Google-ish company that got introduced last season briefly as sort of a ridiculous millennial sort of enterprise, is bidding on the land as well and wants to put their campus in Pawnee, because why would not everybody not want to just be in Pawnee?
Yeah, of course.
It's the hottest property in the land, y'all. But so Ron and Leslie are on opposite sides of that. Ron has now left the Parks Department and has his own building company called Pretty Good Building Company.
Very good
building company. So he's on the Grizzle team. She is trying to get it for national parks. The Newport heiress, who makes the decision, of course, wants as much money as she could possibly get, which the Parks Department doesn't have. And so they are pitted against one another. And the gala for Ben sort of goes hilariously awry because of their arguments, rather almost exactly like the prom episode that we had. Wasn't that just last
that
week
was
that we
very
watched
recently.
It?
Yes.
It's like, okay. I think we saw this more or less. But, that was all right.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's fun to just kind of jump just a little bit into the future and kind of see where everybody is now. And I know, and I said this last week too, that I was glad that I didn't have to wait, a whole summer in between seasons. I got to just jump in there and find out what was going on.
That was very nice. So
appreciate the power of Netflix.
Yes, absolutely. And was this the one where April and Andy bought a house supposedly, or was that another one? Was that in Ron and Jammy? Were they?
It was in this one, because this is the one where she's all worried that like they're boring because they're getting renter's insurance, and they go see this creepy old house, and then they decide they're going to buy it, but then it's just dropped.
That's pretty much, yes. I don't think it ever gets mentioned again very much, but that was Werner Herzog, the German director.
Yes, I did figure that out, which was, I'm like, wow.
Completely random.
Very random.
I mean, I can see a bunch of alt-rockers wanting to be on Parks and Rec and enjoying it, but that seems like an odd
yes, I
cameo.
Was like, is that who I think that is? Yes, in fact, and I had to check at the end. Yep, I was right. But yeah, I mean, I don't think that's really typical of this show to leave something like that hanging.
Yeah, I think they just had so much else going on, I guess.
Right.
I would have liked to have seen that developed a little, but there's just, they have a lot of loose ends to tie up. So
yes.
I guess they just felt that it was funny that they would want to buy that house, and that was pretty much where they left it.
Right, yeah.
But then we moved on to Ron and Jammy, which I think I mentioned that the Moving Up, the last episode of the 6th season, was supposed to have a scene in which they contrived to get Jeremy Jam and Ron's ex-wife Tammy together.
Right.
And I guess they just they had to cut it from that episode for time, but they sort of saved the idea. And used it here for this episode, where poor Jam, never thought I would say those words, but gets a Ron Swanson makeover.
Exactly.
The hair and the mustache and the clothes, and Ron and Leslie have to work together to save him.
Yes.
The scene in which they spray her perfume in his face and then Leslie smacks him.
Repeatedly.
Very satisfying for Leslie.
The whole deprogramming scene was quite funny.
That was very funny, yes. The bit at the end with the library nudity seemed a bit much to me. I mean...
Yeah. But I think that's been...
That's been established
a thing all along. That's what the library is like in Pawnee.
Yes, and she can get away with anything she wants, but Leslie gets shushed for talking in the library. So, and I think this one is also the episode in which Lucy re-enters the picture, Tom's old girlfriend.
Yes.
Who's been out for several seasons. Natalie Morales, I like her, so I was happy to see her come back. And we'll be back for the rest of the series. So it's kind of nice that they brought her back for the end.
Yeah. And so Tom and Andy go to Chicago to kind of try to accidentally bump into her.
Yes, that was not very well thought out. I think Tom made the mistake of saying drinks were on the house, and so Andy just then set out to drink everything there was.
And then it was cute. Andy, trying to help Tom out and play a role, and then not understanding, wait, am I actually moving to Chicago?
I think they've been having trouble finding the naively adorable and stupid line with Andy lately. I think just as Chris Pratt has gotten more fabulous, it's like he's too normal for a while, and then they swing the pendulum over to just completely, a little too far, I think. But it's still cute. I mean, he can sell it, but kind of, I don't know about that. But it ends well. So then we move on to William Henry Harrison, which has more Ron and Leslie feuding, with poor Ben caught in the middle, just trying to get signatures on this document, with Larry as the extremely principled notary, and Terri, I guess he's Terri now.
He's Terri now, yeah.
So, just having to do it over and over again.
Right.
The whole feuding stuff and one-upmanship and all that was getting old for me by this point, but that all of it, everything, all of the episodes preceding, all the Ron and Leslie feuding was worth it for that moment at the end where they lock them in the office and they say, we have had enough.
Right.
Work this out. And Donna gives them a talking to, that you have to handle this. We've had enough. Because they've all the friends have been caught in the middle.
Right.
And pitted against each other. So,
right. And then we get the whole
wonderful
episode
yes.
of Leslie and Ron is the two of them locked into the office together.
Yes. I guess we would call that a bottle episode, where it's just really the two of them in one place. Although you do get some flashbacks with other people and then a little bit at the beginning and end. But I think those two were shown on the same night, which is why it said to be continued right now.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And
NBC was burning them off at this point, I think.
Right. And it was important because, you had to get the explanation and
yes.
and the reconciliation
yes.
of the two of them, but it had just some very funny.
It was so fun. Just if nothing else but that scene where Leslie gets Ron to talk by singing "We Didn't Start the Fire" with her own lyrics as she was making up as she went along. That was wonderful.
Yes.
That must have been a lot of fun to shoot that.
Yeah, to come up with all that stuff and to
yes.
shoot it. And then, they end up totally reorganizing the office and suddenly Ron's wearing Craig's yoga clothes and just on and on.
So wonderful. I mean, you have to suspend disbelief that there was a bottle of alcohol stashed there someplace and that Ron's saxophone somehow
he had a saxophone.
had an old one in the back room apparently, along with a bottle of whiskey and a whittling knife. But that was and it did a very good job of explaining what the Morning Star situation was and why the feud had begun. And,
right.
And also just some gems from early on of, his first impressions of her and her thank you note.
Yes. From the very beginning.
Yes. And how would these two have ever started to work together? But he just respected having somebody who would talk back to him rather than a yes person. Mm-hmm. So that was all very cute and just really drew upon years and years of goodwill for those two characters, I think.
Yes.
And as hard as it was to see them fighting for 3 episodes, seeing them make up and just being the two of them in that setting together, just what a great showcase for those two actors. And
yes,
very fun, very very fun.
Yes.
So now we move on to the next 4 we are going to watch are Grizzylbox, Save JJ's, Donna and Joe. Lots of Anns in this last season. Donna and Joe and Ms. Ludgate-Dwyer Goes to Washington. And then the week after that, we will be done with this series, and we're talking about maybe doing a sports night watch next, doubling up on our Aaron Sorkin projects.
That's
we'll still be watching The West Wing for quite some time.
Yes, for the foreseeable future. That is the agenda.
At least we'll see how far we go beyond the Sorkin years, but we may try. See if you have sports night available to you anywhere, listeners. ABC has it. I will have a link up. ABC is showing it for free on its website. The only problem is they are adding extremely lengthy commercial breaks. So if you're willing to watch commercials, you can watch it free there. You can find DVRs of it in various places. Mm-hmm. It is sadly not on Netflix. But anyway, 2 more weeks of Parks and Rec, 2 more weeks in Pawnee, and then we will give them a wonderful send-off with that final episode. It's very sweet. Good. As one would expect. So moving on to The West Wing, which we are watching along with the West Wing Weekly podcast. Mm-hmm. The most recent episode we watched was 6 Meetings Before Lunch, and I have to agree with the podcasters. I can't quite figure out what 6 meetings they're talking about either.
Yes,
seems like there are either more than 6 meetings or fewer than 6 meetings, depending on what you consider a meeting. Mm-hmm. So I'm not sure about that. It may just have been an allusion to something and not an actual tally. But.
Right. They have to add that to their list of things we're going to ask Aaron Sorkin.
Yes, I
someday.
hope they are adding that. Yes, if he ever comes on, I don't know. And it also, this is the one that features the jackal, right? Which is a famous and possibly regrettable scene of The West Wing that, I don't know, it makes me uncomfortable, as it does them. It's in some ways delightful. Allison Janney is great, and I applaud everything she wants to do, even if it's silly. But certainly the guys do not come off well in that scene. No. And she's performing this crazy lip sync to this song called The Jackal, and then they're doing their, as was pointed out, their white man's overbite dance in the background. Well, it doesn't go Josh
too well
and Sam are doing that, and Toby and Leo are just sort of puffing on cigars and looking leeringly, which is also kind of gross. So it's just, all of it is
problematic.
Problematic is a good word for it, but that is the jackal, as is talked about, right? And a lot of there's certainly a continued ramp up of the threats to Charlie and Zoe in this episode, as we drive inexorably towards the end of the season, in which that will pay off. Spoiler. But I shan't tell you how. Okay. Anyway, so that's, but I do, they mentioned on the podcast that scene between CJ and Zoe, where CJ and Gina, where CJ wants to find out what happened, and Gina can't tell her because she can't, she can't let Zoe think she has to do stuff behind her back. She has to know that Gina's not going to say anything. And CJ resists it at first, and then she accepts it. And it was just such a scene of respect between two professional women that I really appreciated. And then Gina explains herself, and then makes a friendly, in a gesture of friendly, well, it's, do you want to sit down with me and look at teenage skinheads? But still, it's like a, no hard feelings sort of thing. Just very nice. I really liked that scene, and I was glad that they mentioned it.
And even then, she doesn't tip her hand. No. She says, oh, it's just what I do for fun over my lunch break, even though, no, she's doing it because she's still, she needs to keep an eye on these people.
Exactly. Yeah, so that was very nice, I thought. And Sam and Mallory, just kiss already, Although she is really kind of a pain in the ass, I have to say. Yeah. I think Sam could do better. I mean, she wouldn't think about the fact that it might be his job to write things that he doesn't agree with.
Yeah, and that if he didn't agree with them, it meant that, her father or someone else that she respects in the administration did agree with it.
Yeah, why she would yell at him,
Right.
Yeah. But I guess it's just Leo having fun, maybe set it up for her in that way. But, time to move along or cut the cord with that, I think, which they don't really, I guess they do sort of do at some point, but, yeah. Yeah.
Still enjoyable.
Still enjoyable, yeah. Minor episode, but
yeah, you didn't feel like a lot of big stakes were.
No, yeah, and there was the whole thing about reparations between.
Actually, that was a great scene too, though.
It was very interesting, but it just seemed like Aaron Sorkin wanted to write something about that. So. Right, and the education one also. So it seemed like maybe 6 meetings for lunch is 6 issues that Aaron Sorkin feels like writing about.
Yes,
and has no plot to put them in.
I did appreciate the interplay between Josh and the attorney who was going to be appointed to a civil rights position. Just the way that, again, they did show respect for each other's arguments, and neither one of them was just dismissing everything out of hand. They were listening to each other. And
yes, and I like the point about this was the rare time where they didn't rein the person in who they are supporting for something and make them apologize or retract or whatever. It's just like, okay, yeah, explain it to the people that way and let's see what happens.
Right.
That was a good way to end that, I thought.
Yeah.
So good, enjoyable and watchable episode with the possible exception of, I mean, the Jackal is one of those things that it's bad and yet I'm fascinated to watch it. So disturbing, but you can't look away.
Mm-hmm.
So the next episode is Let Bartlet Be Bartlet.
Okay. Sort of like let Alice and Janney be Alice and Janney if she wants to lip sync.
That's right. Well, the whole, I think I had heard the story before that it was something that she did in her trailer and they just thought it was funny and so they put it in the show. But not everything translates over in quite that way, folks.
Exactly.
Sadly. Sad but true.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, I guess that will be it for our round 2 today. Please subscribe to our Parenting Roundabout podcast so you won't miss any of our episodes, including our daily speed rounds and weekly group chats. As always, you can find recaps, links, and an opportunity to comment on our website at parentingroundabout.com. Bye, Catherine.
Bye, Terri.
Goodbye, everybody.